Atlas literally every Wednesday, 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. We flipped it around a little bit, and here we are in Hollywood instead of in Glendale, home of the Mitchell camera, which is where we usually present at our factory. So thank you, those of you who have been to Wednesday, for checking it out, and tell those who haven't what they're missing. It's a good time. You can bring your own camera. We have a lot of cameras you can try. We have our lenses. You can bring your own lenses. But mostly, it's an event for the community. People like yourselves who love films. That's why I'm here. I love movies. I love telling stories. I love meeting people that love stories and helping them tell their stories with incredible tools. So what can we not get behind with that? I mean, I think that's something universal, you know. Anybody heard of the Lascaux Caves before? There are these caves in France. And in France, there's the paintings on the wall, and people saw the paintings, and they said, why do these buffalo and these bison and these human figures all have like 4 sets of arms and legs? They couldn't figure it out. They thought the people in the cave were tripping on mushrooms. And then an anthropologist walked into the cave with a flickering torch on fire, and they saw that those cave paintings animated back and forth and danced to the rhythm. And they realized motion pictures have been with us for a very long time. And I think they will continue to be with us for a very long time. That's why we're all here, for motion pictures, for people, for storytelling, and for adventure. So who's ready to learn something? All right, me too. I'm hungry for knowledge. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun today. And after this, I think we're all gonna be hungry for food. So stick around, because I think we got some good, tasty eats outside in the back there. We're gonna have a chance for you to try a new slow motion camera with our anamorphic lenses. We've got an incredible lighting system from LUX. We have incredible battery power from Battery Evo. We have some really interesting workflow technology from the folks at Strada, which means street in Italian, if you didn't know. Now you know. And we're figuring out the Resolume system, which is this big screen behind me. And I would be remiss not to mention this is a new small-scale studio that these folks just put in here called Los Angeles Studios. And you could use this small screen for vehicle work. They've got Go Jacks. You could pull a car in here, get some car shots without having to be out on the street. Got air conditioning. And there's robotic motion control here from Drew Lauer. So anybody know Drew? Me neither. I just found him on the street. But we could ask him a lot of questions after this, so let's dig in. And we have some incredible presenters. We have Drew, who I mentioned. You know, Drew, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? We can pass him the other mic there. Let me dial that up for you. There we go.
Check. Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Drew Lauer. I've been a cinematographer in LA for 20 years now, and always from the very beginning, a high-speed camera in my hand. I worked with red light cameras and AOS cameras, Photron cameras, Phantom cameras for many, many years, and always looking at the new stuff that's coming along. Always technology is what I've always gone for. My goal was always to make art and then use just the most advanced technology to do it. So I came from high-speed cameras and drones and time-lapse and motion control time-lapse, and then now my latest obsession is the motion control robots, which all fits together with the high-speed stuff. So I'm really looking forward always to seeing what's coming next.
Thank you. And then we have Ty Evans here. Anybody know Ty? I'm a huge fan of Ty.
Hey, how you doing?
Millimeter, without even sprocket holes. They'd fly the film through the camera so fast, they couldn't even have sprockets to pull it. It'd have to like jet through that shit. Pardon my French.
Same thing, Photosonic 1635, and then, yeah, all the Phantom cameras as well.
Nice. Great to have you here. Really stoked.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm really excited for your demo. We got some skateboarding. Going to get out there after this and film some skating in the parking lot back there. So, and we also have Jim Godoldik here. So big shout out to Jim. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks for having me. How's it going, everyone? So yeah, Jim Godoldik, cinematographer and visual effects supervisor, like Ty and Drew, because we've also all worked on projects together over our career. Been shooting high speed, working with Vision Research, helped develop the Miro series camera, which came after the HD Gold, after the Flex, and right around the time of Flex 4K. So I've been on the switch over from high-speed film with 35 and then going to digital high-speed. Lots of motion control and camera arrays and specialty arrays, and mostly working in features and episodic now. But yeah, I'm super psyched to be here. We got a lot of toys, it looks like.
I mean, it's hard for us to pack in all the things that you've all done because you guys have been at it for a while, and the overlap between the different things that you've all done, there's intersection, but there's also completely sporadic diaspora of possibilities and capabilities. So like you mentioned VFX, excited to dig into a little more of that later too. And we also have a real special effects wizard and just all around brilliant cinematographer, David Stump, ASC BVK. Really honored to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you. Thank you all. It's nice to be here. Yeah, my career sort of spans a lot of years, and I think it would be easier just to say if it's a visual effects or cinematography technique, I've probably done it. So I don't want to sit here and go over all of the names of all of the things that I've done. But I hope there will be plenty of time for questions and answers, and I'd love to show you some of what I've done.
I think one of the key things I could say is the best technology is indistinguishable from magic. And what we do in motion pictures is magic. And so if we're able to use these technologies to tell better stories in a way that you never perceive the technology, it becomes invisible, we are magicians ourselves. And I think that illusionmanship or illusion quality is something that's just part of storytelling and inherently part of the technology that we utilize. So really excited to hear from you all about that. And we were watching some of your work on American Gods yesterday. You watch that and you're like, how did they do this? It looks real. There's not a moment where I go, this is, that's phony. I go, they really crashed that car. All this glass is really going everywhere. These flames are burning this building down. I believed it. I was taken. And that's magic. You're taken with that moment.
When you do visual effects, the greatest compliment anyone can give you is they watch the movie and they say, well, now tell me, which were the effects shots?
Yeah, where did they put the effects? That was how I felt. I mean, that's from the heart. And then finally, love to present Ariel Levesque from IO Studio in Montreal. And of us, he's definitely had the most seat time with this new camera that we're going to look at today, the Spark. So hopefully the Spark lights a fire in all of our hearts and lets us do something really crazy cool. And I think all of you have used Atlas lenses before, right? If you haven't, I mean, we can fix that. But I know you've also been using them a lot with the Spark lately. So, tell us about yourself. Tell us about what's been going on with you.
Yes, hi, I'm Ariel Levesque, like he said. I'm a commercial director based in Montreal, run IO Studio up there. And for the past 7-8 months, we've been working a lot with the Pixboom, this new camera, and got really sort of close with them. So we've been working with the development of the camera itself as well. And I'm here to sort of introduce it to these guys and compare it with all the experience they've had with the Phantom and all the other cameras, because it brings a lot of new, sort of like a lot of new approaches when it comes to slow motion. And I think it's gonna be a game changer. It's a really, really fun and cool camera to use. So yeah, that's about it. I'm excited to show what it can do and how it works.
Super cool. So what I'm going to do is run the panel and ask these folks 5 key questions. And then by the time we get through those questions, I think that this system's going to be working and we can show you the reel of some of their work. And then we can ask questions and then we can see what's the deal with this camera. What do you think? Sound like a plan? Yeah, like a plan. All right, let's do it.
Guys, Can I say one more thing about the studio before we move on?
Yeah.
This is a brand new studio, Los Angeles studio. It's kind of my playground where I come and test robots and test high speed and all sorts of things. The LED, the volume is new. There's 2 more walls coming in. It's also a ceiling. And right now, too, they're promising anybody here who grabs one of these flyers can get special discount because they're not even advertising yet. This studio's so new. So we're going to be up and running real soon.
You are some of the very first people to experience this, and because of that, you have exclusive access to this,
That's right.
the deal coupon. So we'll hook you up.
Old school coupons.
There we go.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's dig into it. Why are we here today? Like, why would anyone ever want to shoot high speed? And, you know, slow motion, what's that? Who cares, right? I mean, I want to slow my life down. I feel like I'm living life a quarter mile at a time, and I'd like to slow that down a little bit. But what do you guys think? How do you choose a frame rate, and why would you shoot slow motion or be interested in it at all?
Well, it's about seeing the world in a new way, right? Like seeing it differently, showing the world differently. Yeah.
In some cases, it's about drawing out a moment or drawing out an emotion or letting you absorb a piece of the story that would go by too quickly any other way. Oh, good. Put up the 2 gray slides. I've done a lot of miniatures in my time, and there are physics behind the frame rates that you use to shoot miniatures that change according to the scale of the miniature that you build. And I brought along some footage to show some examples. For example, I brought an 8th scale train wreck that I'll show you in a little bit. But
I brought a full-scale train wreck today. That's me.
These slides will be available to you, but if you want to take pictures of them, there's another slide which is an explanation of the mathematics behind that table. So I urge you to take pictures of both of those slides. And I also contributed this section to the Visual Effects Society manual as well. And these are kind of the rules about if you want to do real scale motion picture miniatures, these are the physics behind it.
I think that's incredible because there might be cases even when we're working with full-scale people or full-scale action, right, that we're trying to convey a sense of speed or intensity, right? And so working in this way, we might be able to change sort of the scale of human perception in pacing, right?
Yes, in almost all cases, this math works, except when you're working with water. And there pretty much isn't a speed or scale that can convince you that miniature water is real. And even in the case where you're using water at 1-to-1, people will still call it a miniature or CGI. I did a commercial 2 years ago, and it appeared on YouTube, and I can't tell you how many people commented that it looked fake. It was guaranteed completely 100% real. So water is kind of the exception to the rules of miniatures.
Thank you. Jim, what do you think?
Coming from the visual effects side too, is a lot of things that we use a lot of high-speed practical shots as the base for the sims that we run for water sims, pyro, and other simulations. So we're always trying to ground any of the high-speed work that we would be compositing or kind of matching back to a practical high-speed shot of looking at what we're doing with machine learning. And, you know, everybody knows in editorial we have retiming, whether you're shooting high speed or not, and we're using things like Twixtor and other plugins that have existed for a while of retiming shots, because speed ramping is, you know, another part of an effect or editorial choice to simulate high speed. So even if you're shooting, you know, a 60 frame, a 30 frame base, you might be using retiming tools to simulate a high speed shot if you're not shooting on a native high-speed camera, whether it be Red, iPhone, Phantom, or pix boom, in that way. So, a lot from the visual effects side too, we're using, a ground base of matching back to a high-speed plate or simulating that through caustics or through retiming tools.
Sweet.
I think one of the cool things about this panel is we're all going to have completely different answers to this. So I'm just going to say it looks fucking cool. I mean, what's the statement? Anything you film in slow-mo looks awesome, right? And I think also there's something there of being mesmerized by it, right? I've
It's
caught
hypnotic.
myself so many times just like staring at something and putting music on, and the combination of that, it gives you this feeling. So, yeah.
It's all about the feeling. I mean, I think that's inherently what we love about the storytelling and making these beautiful images and exploring it. Awesome. And Ariel, tell us a little bit about how you use high speed and why you use it.
Yeah, well, it's just a bit like Drew said. It's a different way of seeing things. It's a bit like putting a microscope on time. So like we're zooming with like long lenses and stuff, but high speed allows us to just sort of going in time and get that temporal resolution and see things that you don't usually see, and it's really it's really cool to see those things come to life. And what Jim was saying in terms of post-production, like with the Twixtor and stuff, what's great with high speed, because Twixtor, when you shoot 30 or 60, will use this and then you can slow it down, but there's nothing that prevents you from using it when you shoot at 960, and then you can slow it down to 5, it just basically you have that extra temporal resolution. So it's all about getting more out of what you're shooting, basically.
I did a shoot once. I used to work at an effects company in the Valley called Apogee for John Dykstra. And we did an effects sequence for a film for Roseanne Barr called She-Devil. And in the script it says, and she blows up the house. It's like this much of a page of the script. But we built an entire gigantic 8th scale miniature of the house that was so precisely perfect of the real location house. And we loaded it up with gasoline and explosives and naphthalene. And we positioned 12 high-speed cameras, several of them high-speed VistaVisions. And we blew up the house. And it was such a big bang that it caught a nearby tree on fire, and the Van Nuys Fire Department showed up with a half dozen engines. So we got a little spanking out of it. But the next day we went to dailies with the editorial department, and the editor came in and sat down in the Apogee screening room, and John Dykstra put on Jean-Michel Jarre Oxygen, and we sat down and we watched about 12,000 feet of high-speed fire footage, and it was just awesomely mesmerizing. It was a spiritual experience. Just sitting there for hours watching this beautiful footage of flames and listening to this music was no other way to describe it. It was spiritual.
And that's a big thing to consider too. The playback time does take hours. When you're shooting that high of speed, time is like really extended. So you end up watching a lot more stuff, right? Unless you're scrubbing through it. So
And
that's an
your
important.
data management goes through the roof.
Oh, for sure. We're gonna get to that. Faux show. So go
My
ahead.
mom always said, "You do what for a living?"
Blow shit up.
So why don't we talk a little bit about composition? I know we were talking about, why shoot high speed at all, and I think that's pretty clear to us. But two things that we could dig into a little more are sort of how do you choose a frame rate, and then is there some techniques or thoughts that you like to apply when you're positioning the camera or framing a shot for action that's either moving very quickly that you're trying to capture slowly, or what are some considerations for people who, anybody else out there, who here has shot over 120 frames a second before? Okay, look at you. Look, we got some high speeds people here. Gonna get you on the panel next time. We got more panels, so might have space. But that's good. I mean, who shot over 240 frames a second before? Gosh, we really got slow-mo people here. Okay. How about 500 frames a second? Okay, we really did it today. Well, break it down for us. Why would we choose certain frame rates, and how do we approach, I know we were talking about the scale of the items that we're filming if we're trying to shoot miniatures, and we're trying to make people feel something. So how do you go about choosing the kind of frame rates for the type of action you're doing, and how do we like to frame our shots, or how do we think about that?
I think what Ty was talking about before is like it's such a vast difference of how any one of us here would approach composition and choosing a frame rate. If you're doing tabletop branded advertising, you might be shooting in around 420 and above to get the pack shots that you want to do. If you're doing anything with cars, maybe you're upwards over 600 to 800 to almost 1,000. It really depends on the shot. Like a lot of us, especially Ty and I, coming from skateboarding, is a lot of the technical tricks that are done. To really appreciate those tricks, they have to be slowed down, and it gives people a better kind of understanding just of how technically something that's happening very fast is broken down. You're looking at foot placement. You're looking at like how loose the trucks are when they're bobbling, especially if it's like Daewon who rides the loosest trucks in the world. And so each approach of like why you would choose a frame rate, it's always like, well, what are you trying to convey? What is the intent of that? And that's going to lead down like where you might choose a particular frame rate, and you might try one at 1,000 and be like, this is going to take minutes to play back in a timeline. I only need this chunk to kind of like cut into the story to kind of help propel whatever it is. It's different for commercials than it is for episodic, than it is for feature or visual effects. So, and I'm sure everybody here that works on various different projects will say the same thing, is like, if you shoot an action scene, you may go higher in terms of frame rate, and you may look at, are you going handheld? Because going handheld at 1,000 frames per second, you're basically cheating a free motion control system. Because
Free stabilization, right?
How many of us that have shot high speed handheld are hand whipping the camera around, or we're on an easy, a ready rig, or a steady cam, and you're getting a pseudo motion control for free by shooting at a very high frame rate and doing the camera movement. And that's probably the biggest thing with camera movement too, is motion control and high speed is like peanut butter and jelly. Since the Dijkstra Flex, like they have gone hand in hand in the early days of ILM team creating motion control systems with high speed film systems. So
I mean, sometimes you need to move the camera so fast to match the scale of the recording,
Exactly.
right, for motion control. So that's another
I'll
really
let, I'll, let
important
Drew, I'll let
consideration.
Drew go into that since he has all his robots here.
What, moving cameras fast? Yeah, I
And
mean,
I just want to really quickly touch on what you said about the kinematics of the way skaters move, or the way that people do motion. It's a dance. I mean, it's so beautiful, nuanced, and the style is so unique to each individual. And I think that also is expressed for us artists as camera people. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful things about what we get to do, is that we get to be one foot in the world of artistry and one foot in the world of technicianship. And if we're doing only one and not the other, we're missing out. So we really get to have both worlds. I mean, that's a real...
well, you hit it on that. I mean, that's the whole thing. For me, my purpose was always making art first and coming up with frames. And the purpose of art, everything we've talking about, goes back thousands of years as far as tricking people with images to make things look like, first to make them look like they're moving on cave walls, or to make a two-dimensional surface look like it's 3D when you get to paintings. And then, so I thought I wanted to make art with just the most expensive toys that I could get my hands on. If we're talking about frame rates and such, I mean, 1,000 is common because that's the max lately, and I think with this camera it's 1,000 at 4K, so that's common too. But favorite frame rate? Do you have a favorite? Does anybody else have a favorite frame rate? 768, because it's a multiple of 24. It still looks like 1,000. for a lot of reasons, it's really easy to speed ramp that way. You're not doing some weird calculation at 1,000 to bring it down to 24. It fits perfectly into that. So that's,
With a 360
Yeah.
shutter?
yep, with a 360 shutter. Often, yes, yeah.
Open shutter 768. I like it. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, because you still, I mean, once you speed that up to a 24, you're still looking at a 22-degree shutter or
Yeah,
something
you
like
can
that.
make anything out of that.
Yeah, yeah.
But conversely, there are also low frame rates that are equally valuable. There was a sequence that I had to operate by hand for Tim Burton's original Beetlejuice movie. And it was a rod puppet fly in the attic graveyard. And the fly was about a foot long, and it was manipulated by black rods and wires. And in order to make it look like it was actually moving at the kinds of jittery speeds that a fly moves at, I had to operate the camera at 8 frames per second, which means you invert the motion control move and you perform it very, very slowly by hand. And it's really hard to do an 8 frame per second pan because you have to ease into it and you have to ease out of it. But when you succeed, it's a great feeling.
It's like yoga or something.
Frame rates and comp? I'm gonna be that guy again. Max it out. Max it out. And 180 shutter more crisp than a 360 because going back in post, putting motion blur on it if you need it, right? And the great Douglas Trumbull and being able to extract those 24 frames out of it. There's been so many times where max it out and then end up using it real time. So yeah, I always try to get it up there as much as we can get it up there, but unless it's a specific job that needs a specific frame rate. Yep.
Doug Trumbull was one of my mentors.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys look up Doug Trumbull, he's an amazing filmmaker.
Nice, Ariel. Yeah, and yeah, we got Drew and Ariel. Yeah.
Then I have about composition.
Yeah, I was gonna say max it out too, but for like in terms of composition and frame rates, what I found is when you go like when you do close-ups, you'll want to go higher oftentimes because like for shadows or for water especially, when you close, things move very fast. And when you're looking at playback, and there's this anticipation moment where you'll wait like a minute or you're scrolling until the shit starts happening, and then it happens faster than you thought. You're like, damn, okay, we need to ramp it up again, like 1200, 1600. So things happen really fast. So for that kind of stuff, I max it out. I'm big on 180 shutter speed as well because I prefer to add it in post, but you can get away with 360 for sure if you need the exposure, which is great with this guy because it's very sensitive, so you can keep it at 180.
Well, with 180 versus 360, so if you're at 1,000 frames per second with a 180 shutter, that's the same as having a still photo camera at 1/2000th shutter. So that's very tight. That's what you'd use for sports shooting and stuff with a 180. So 1/1000th is often plenty. There's plenty of reasons to go down, but my default will be 360 often just to get the light. But then as far as composition goes, I mean, there's a lot about composition, especially when you're shooting sports and action things. You have to frame a lot differently than you would, because what you got to realize is whatever you're pointing at right now, it's not going to be like that in a moment. It's going to be an explosion or there's going to be a trick, so you need to leave space for where it's going to be in a moment and not there. And you're shooting skateboarding or football, for example. I used to do a lot of ESPN and shooting football. On a normal camera, you lose their head or you lose the ball for a split second. In the slow-mo, it's 20 seconds where you have this head chopped off. So you just need to use lots of headroom, make sure you're overshooting, because you'd be so surprised how when they throw that ball, it goes really, really, really high out of frame, and you don't want it out for 20, 40 seconds at a time. Yeah. So I think there's a lot to that.
And the two of you guys, you guys do a lot of product and tabletop work, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I know we all kind of span a variety of different subject matter, and none of us are just painted into a corner, but we do have a nice, diverse group of talents and approaches. So that's that's why we have you all here. you guys on that side are more of the tabletop stuff, I'd say, maybe, right? Definitely you, Ariel.
Yeah,
I am now.
guilty. And just to go back to composition, and it's also, like Drew was saying, like you have to think about what's about to happen, but also think about what it's going to look like when you play it back, because it's like shooting log, you know, like you can apply a lot and then you see your image the way it's going to look like, but when you shoot high speed, you're not going to know what it looks like once slow down. So it's thinking about this, like depending on like how slow do you want it, like how long do you want it on your edit, if you can, you know, and also if you don't want to drown your editor with hours of footage. So there's a lot of those things that you're thinking about.
Composition.
Yeah, I feel like we nailed that pretty well. We can dig into lighting a little bit if you want, and then, you know, I definitely want to make sure we have room to get the reels in, because that's going to be awesome.
Sure, yeah.
But
Lighting, lots of light. More light, the better. Always light. Well, the common question is that I used, get it less and less now, but a long time ago, it was a whole conversation every morning with the director on all these little things that work. And the question was always, well, how much light do we need? And just more, because there's just, there's one thing where you get enough light to just see the subject, and now you can see it, but we want to shape it. We need to get this light, way more light than you think, in order to diffuse it and shape it and make it not look like a high-speed shot, which is really easy to do if you just rip some lights at it,
I mean, we used to have to also synchronize the light with the shutter back in the day, so that would be a whole exercise, right?
That was an exercise in futility, is what that was.
I spent a long time figuring out synchronizing boxes and sync boxes, and a lot of times we would just work with very, very, very large tungsten and arc lights. And there's no feeling like doing a product shot this close on a product on a table and having so much light pouring in on it that you melt the product before the shot is over. And I don't know how many of you have done it, but I've done it time and time again, and it's just one of the occupational hazards, or it was when we were shooting high-speed film, and we were forced to use so much light to get any stop at all.
Just say that the hand models have it easy now with the LEDs.
Yeah,
We used to be brutal. Now they're getting hot again.
Yeah, I think that if you hadn't had the pain of having to deal with pre-LED fixtures in high speed, you've been spoiled.
Who here has ever used an arc light? I mean, I may be one of the last generation to have my hands on an actual arc light.
You shouldn't put your hands on it. You should
Literally,
have, you should
yeah,
have
literally.
gloves on.
Let it cool down first.
Yeah.
If you want your fingers, you don't touch arc lights. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. Obviously, cinematography is lighting. It's definitely lighting and composition and what you're trying to tell a story in a frame at 24 frames or at 1,000 frames or 1,000,000 frames if you go down to a postage stamp. But now that we've moved over to LED lighting and having less of a power draw, so we can get more lights. The lights have been democratized in their cost, so we can get a lot more punch for a lower cost than we could previously. You're getting the god light of like M18s out there and some moles and some other stuff that you would have there. And like I said, it would be extremely hot on set. Like, things would melt, people would melt. Makeup, touch-up, if you're shooting actors and actresses, makeup was so busy because they're always coming in pre or post buffer trigger, is that you're touching up something because it was so hot pre LED. But then just looking at you have to meet the technical spec of what you can to get proper exposure, and then you're looking at the creative side to it. So it was like a 2-layer build to the lighting. You're kind of like peeling back this onion. But I would say if you're getting into high speed now, you're very spoiled because you have a lot of these pain points have been, I don't want to say they have been 100% solved, but they have gotten much easier with newer sensors, sensitivity, global shutter, and just LED technology for lighting just progressing so much, especially that
The-
big old monster back there. We would have loved that even 6 years ago.
The quality of light and the quantity of light per dollar has really, as you said, gotten much more accessible. So, looking at these NanoLux lights, it's not only that it's bright, it's less power consumptive, and the quality of light is spectacular. So you don't just want to put light on something. You want to have full spectrum where you're not getting like gaps in the spectrum where it's going to look, unsaturated, the wrong color, or, weird, right? We want it to look rich, full, how we see the world, photopically correct for our human eyes, right?
Yeah, big difference in proper photometrics that come from LED diodes is the technical aspect of it is like there's a lot of cheap LED lighting out there, but it doesn't have the same quality output as some of the more professional systems that we have here and that are available from other manufacturers. So it's definitely pay attention to testing the light systems, especially if it's not your own or you haven't shot with that system before, is definitely test the light quality of that system with your production camera, your rental, whatever it is, or talk to your phantom op or your high-speed op and have this conversation early.
And always shoot a chip chart.
And when you shoot a chip chart, if you shoot it with a full spectrum lighting source, all of the colors are there. If you shoot it with a narrow spectrum, for example, RGB light that's using a tiny spike of red, a tiny spike of green, and a tiny spike of blue, when you get to the yellow chip chart, that light is not making that color, and therefore you're not recording that color, and no amount of color correcting can put that color back into your shots. And that's called metamerism. When narrow spectrum primaries shine at something like a human face, you expect a certain return from that face in colors all across the visible spectrum. When the visible spectrum isn't there in its entirety, faces look funny and you can't correct them back in.
Oh, chart thing. One more chart thing too. There is a difference between charts. Charts that are for photography stills do differ from charts for video signals. So that's another thing to pay attention to. There's a lot of, Macbeth charts and X-Rite charts that are out there, and there are different classes of charts out there. DSC Labs, there's some high-end stuff that, gets into the thousands of dollars, but having proper charts for what you're shooting is also important. It's really good to invest in the better charts that are specific to what you are capturing. So just be aware of there's a lot of charts on Amazon, but they're not of the highest of quality.
Got any DaVinci Resolve fans in the house? I'm a big DaVinci guy. All right, let's go, DaVinci. Cool. I thought that was great, and I think I definitely want to make sure we have time to show everyone's footage and then get right into actually trying this new camera. So, I think that we have a lot of really on-point slow motion familiar people here, but if we were to just quickly touch on some of the technical considerations, I know we were talking about data rates being high, but what are some of your top advice for people when thinking about shooting high speed? Imagine you had a camera that could shoot 1,000 frames a second, 4K with high dynamic range in 10 or 12-bit RAW, depending on your setup. What would we want to know? Because, sometimes you're going to have the ability to have a really great DIT, and sometimes you're going to have to be your own DIT. That's just the times we live in. So what kind of advice would you give people in terms of thinking about technical considerations or just, preparing themselves?
Want to go first?
Yeah.
Well, I'll mention what Jim said, hard drive space. It goes fast, so get ready for it. There is one thing
I think we
want to
call that
mention.
big disk energy. Cancel me.
The formula to figure out real time with what you shot, right? So I have my cheat sheet. Frame rate divided by base times 100 equals what you put in for your percentage there. And that's been super helpful. So that's one thing that I think always has helped me trying to figure out how to get back to real time.
See us after class if you need that formula.
One of the things you always have to do when you're shooting high speed, but this is true in all of cinematography, especially true in high speed work, is managing expectations. You've got a producer and a director a lot of times who haven't done anything like this, and you've got to prep them for what they're going to see. You don't just show up with 2 hours of dailies of a house burning down without telling your producer and your director and your editor you're about to see 2 hours of dailies. And what we're going to shoot is going to produce 2 hours of dailies and cost this much. So don't leave out managing people's expectations.
Yeah, I used to, like I said, it used to be a conversation every morning to manage their expectations, to let them know how the whole thing works. And I mean, so technical considerations, so many, and I'm really curious to ask Ariel more and more about that. I've already gone down that path, but there's so many things if you've shot other slow motion cameras as far as just the download times and the download process, because no slow motion cameras work like regular cameras they all have an internal buffer for several reasons, but the practical reason for us on set is so that we can trim our clips before they go out, so we don't end up with terabytes upon terabytes upon terabytes of just dead space, just a sky while we're waiting for the eagle to fly through. And the eagle only lasts a couple of moments, so you want to be able to trim the clip and just keep what you need and not end up with all that other stuff. So many technical situations. Yeah, debayering to black referencing to dual ISOs and yeah.
I mean, like a lot of it applies to all cameras, like black pixels and all this for sure. But for slow motion, big thing is you're gonna want. I mean, like they said, you're gonna want space. You're gonna want because you will record a lot. It's just you shoot 2 seconds, you end up with 2 minutes or like for whatever it is. It's just a lot more than you will expect, and especially if you're shooting. We're shooting a lot in studio. You're trying things like physics thing, like whether it's you're dropping something or you're with water, with fire. Those things are very unpredictable oftentimes. So you will be shooting it over and over again, many times, to get the right shadow, to get it all happening the way you want it. So yeah, you'll want a lot of space for sure. Trimming in camera, all those things are great to have, but you still. I mean, I like to keep all the shots as much as possible because you never know in post which, if the first one was great or was the 13th one. So yeah, space.
I'm going to give you one really great tip for when you're doing high-speed cinematography. There is a sweet spot for shooting fire. And if you shoot fire out here in this day exterior, the exposure on the fire is going to be probably spot on, probably perfect if you expose for the environment around it. But if you're lighting a night scene and you're blowing something up, and as you watch shows from now on, notice this, if you don't lift the levels of the scene itself, the fire just blows out. And there's no detail in it, there's no color in it. You have to struggle to color correct it back in again. There's just too much dynamic range in the scene. So you have to lift the rest of the exposure up as much as you can to get as close to that sweet spot for the flames.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we used to do a lot of those, I call them Mythbusters genre, where we'd go out in the desert and just, even if the science was working right, we'd still blow it up at the end. It was so fun.
Just get out there and bust some.
Yeah. Even when it went well, we're like, can we blow it up anyway? Yeah, we would. So we used to do car explosion after car explosion after car explosion, so many. And the game we used to play as the high-speed operators was taking darkening the picture, closing down the aperture as much as possible until you could still kind of see the mountains, you could still see a very dark sky in the background, and you could still make out that we're in a desert. But you got to remember, like I said, nobody's going to be watching this shot. It's going to be when the explosion happens. And we're trying to do by lowering the exposures, we were trying to get it to never clip so that the whitest part of the explosion never goes above 100. And only maybe once or twice did we actually hit there. Even if you get it close, it still gives this really orange, fiery, detailed, like all the little things inside. And that's the part of the thing that everybody's watching. Nobody's going to say, oh, the desert looks a little dark. Because even the car, the pieces of the car that fly off, they're now lit by the explosion itself. So you're thinking about, I'm thinking about what I'm framing right now or exposing for or focusing for. It's what's going to happen in that, during that split second of time, you know.
You can always tell when you're working with guys who've done a lot of high-speed work and blowing things up. They know how to Foley their own explosion sounds while they're describing it.
Yeah. Well, we used to do so much of that stuff. In the middle of that, I was at a stop light in the middle of, you know, just going to the grocery store. And these two cars collided head on right in front of me. And I remember I was on the phone and I didn't even flinch. It didn't even bother me whatsoever because I'd seen so many of those at that point. Just like, oh.
Yeah, I think technical considerations too of where we are today is if and when you can, always shoot global shutter, especially for high speed. We know many reasons of why CMOS sensors are great, and they may have a little bit more latitude and range than a global shutter, which tends to lose about a stop depending on the sensor that's being used in that particular camera, and it doesn't matter if it's an iPhone or any one of these cameras here. So global shutter, if you can, go global shutter, and then your pipeline for setting expectations, like Dave mentioned, is, you know, we can have it set up if you're on set and you don't have your playback system for whatever camera platform you're on, setting expectations of, like, you know, how long it takes for playback, how long it takes for offloads, depending on if you're working with a director or DP, if you happen to be that high-speed op, is setting the expectations way ahead of time to just, like, take someone through the pipeline of how high-speed works, because it does work different, especially with high-speed specialized cameras. And I'm talking about cameras that are particular for high-speed, not cameras that have high-speed capability. We're talking about, obviously, Pixboom, Vision Research, and other camera systems that are out there. It is a different workflow than working with, like, you know, an Alexa or a Red or a Blackmagic or a Venice or anything like that. And to Ty's point earlier, too, of, like, having enough hard drive space is, you know, one raw frame exponentially is larger than, say, an R3D or an RE RAW file. There's that much more data in a system that comes off a Phantom camera or even potentially a Pixboom camera in its RAW format. So when we're talking about setting the expectations of there, like, raw data still has to get conformed into your DNXs and your ProReses and your DPXs and EXRs. So you have to build in those expectation of timetables, even from a, like, end of day op and DIT being able to do turnovers of data, setting that expectation. So make sure production, your producers, your showrunners all know that, like, the Amazon LaCie drives that they may hand over to you, don't cut it. You want to make sure, like, obviously if you can run fiber is great, or TB5 or anything like that, but you want very fast, the fastest your production budget can buy, solid state drives, NVMe, or if you're op that you're working with, like, you know, any of our systems that we have, you know, for offload, we're working with very fast RAIDs to be able to not only offload, convert, and be able to play back quickly, because the early days were extremely painful of people watching over your shoulder. So when do we have playback?
Do you guys have a top favorite brand of, like, RAID or drive these days? I can name two that I love. I'm a big fan of the OWC,
OWC,
Mercury line.
Yeah.
But I also like the pro grade stuff pretty well.
Yeah, and the new SSDs are coming. I mean, on set we'll use the SSDs, and then I'm sure these and other stuff there. Well, a lot of the technical consideration, the thing that you're bringing up as well, is, I mean, because originally these cameras weren't made for cinematographers at all. They were made for science and research, NASA, Ford Motor Company, and a lot of the things that we were concerned about, they're not concerned about at all. Picture quality, battery, even like an SDI output, a faithful SDI output, those didn't even exist originally. Yeah, color, and then a huge amount of my job over the past 20 years has been just translating these folks that kind of speak science, and trying to get them to understand what we need. And sometimes trying to communicate them, because like they'll say things like, oh, it looks pretty good. And we're like, well, pretty good is not what we're after. Like, we're trying to take it to this next level and really trying to make these cameras, which were originally very cumbersome and not easy to work with on set at all, to come to set. One of the first Photrons was 90 minutes to download one shot. Yeah, so I'd get 3 or 4 a day, and everybody was happy, and that was how it went. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many technical things that come up with these cameras, right? I mean, we can go on and on, but even if we're talking even like a Phantom Cine, bringing it into Premiere, and how Premiere translates that Cine compared to bringing it into Resolve, and how Resolve translates that Cine. There's so many things, and I've been a huge fan of trying it, figuring it out, and go, okay, well, that's that, right? So there's so many instances like that in high speed that I've just gone through and tried to figure out by going through it. But that was a major one that I realized, where I was like, it looks like garbage in Premiere. Sorry, Adobe. Maybe you guys can fix that.
Because they didn't take the time to translate, because Resolve is really taking the time to
It looks
translate
way better.
from whatever the scientists want to do to what we want to see.
Yeah. But yeah, man, there's other things too. We recently did a shoot last month where we had a Flex 4K, and then we had a couple other non-high-speed cameras, and the difference in lighting between those sensors. And we even had a dedicated Arri 360 on the side on wheels that we were bringing in to use that to change the lighting for that shot as well. And yeah, there's so many different factors that you have when going through it.
Since I've built a lot of camera arrays over my career too, Ty's point is a very valid one of fight for prep. Work with the, obviously be on the camera team side of like fighting for those prep days and those test days ahead of time, because when you're shooting multicam, you could have, succession of serial number 1 through 5, but all of them can vary. And there's different tolerances. There's ambient temperature tolerances that can make a sensor output differently. And then to Ty's other point too is the way that our software manufacturers implement an SDK, which Dave brought up, it can differ. So that same Cine file or that same raw file that you bring into Resolve could differ and look different from Mystica, could look different from Nuke. It's all a company's interpretation of the SDK and the color management for the raw file, because this goes back to even like the speed grade days and obviously Seance and glue tools and things like that were made just to deal as an intermediary for this, is that the color science can differ based on the manufacturer. I would say more tried and true is things like today, Resolve, Fusion, Nuke, and Mystica and some other tools do a really good job of implementing the proper color science for very high-end workflows with high speed and raw formats. So spend more time learning about the color management of the sensor you're using.
Gentlemen, that's been an epic panel. I want to make sure we have space to run the reels really quick. And then we have, who's hungry? We're going to eat in high speed. So we got a couple treats, a couple different kinds of treats. We're going to run Ty's reel. We've got some experiences where you can actually try some Atlas lenses and see what Ty does with them with the new Pixboom Spark. Going to have some food for you. We're going to have these reels really quick. And then Michael from Strata is also going to be presenting about workflow a little bit after 2 p.m. So we're going to start with Ty's reel, if that's all right. And that way we
want to
can
move out of the way so you can all see the big TV.
Sounds good to me. Does that work for you? We'll run Ty's, and then we'll run Jim's, then we'll run Dave's, and then we'll grab some food. We'll kick it. What do you guys think? All right, give a hand for these gentlemen. Really great presentation. Here we go. Yeah, can someone kill the house lights? Woo! Sorry, guys, I'm a noob. First day. All right, here we have Jim's reel. Woo!
Which one do you want to run for me? Do you want to do the,
Which one do you want to do?
I don't care.
Right.
You could do, if you do the American Gods one, scroll down to where you see the rabbits. and then,
Okay.
Then start it.
This,
Fresh, yeah, the
yeah.
first one, yeah.
Okay.
And then just scroll down to after you see the rabbit running into the road. A little further, 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 further. Further, okay, that's good right there.
I owe a battle.
You're following Wednesday so that you can fight in his war and die, and for that you run his errands?
I done worse than that.
Dying worked for me. Everyone should try it at least once. Seems like you've walked the earth a couple 100 years in those boots already, so you're due.
Woo!
Don't you know I lose control when you're not next to me? I'm falling apart right in front of you. Can you see? I lose control when you're not next to me. Yeah, you're breaking my heart, baby. You make a mess of me. Problematic. Problem is, I want your body like a fiend, like a bad habit. Bad habits, how to break them with you. Yeah, I know I can do it on my own, but I want that real full on black magic, and it takes two. Problematic. Problem is, when I'm with you, I'm an addict. And I need some relief. My skin in your teeth. Can't see the forest through the trees. Got me down on my knees. Darling, please. I lose control when you're not next to me. I'm falling apart right in front of you. Can't you see? I lose control when you're not next to me. Yeah, you're breaking my heart, baby. You make a mess of me.
Woo! Nice. And then last, we're going to wrap it up with some kick-ass footage also from Ariel from when he was in Dubai recently. So let's check that out, and then we could pop out, grab some food. experience the camera, and then come back in with your food and check out a little presentation from Michael Cioni from Strada. And please, one more time, give these gentlemen a huge round of applause. Amazing panel. They're going to be here to answer your questions. We're going to get to all experience this camera together for the first time and unpack what the heck this thing is. So let's figure it out. Let's find out. Let's do it. Sorry, no music on this one.
Beatbox for us or something?
Careful what you ask for.
We could hum Sousa marches.
I saw a Mercury shot in there. Nice. Woo. Yeah, we could play it out, yeah. All right, so one more time we're gonna run Ty's reel and, let's start eating. Let's get some food. We'll come back soon. Thank you, guys.
Come back for Strada in 30 minutes. Thank you so much, everyone.